First, I want to break down what it means to be socialized. To be socialized means that you're kind of mixed socially with others. If we break it down, it goes down to the word social, meaning of society, of status, of rank, and ized, meaning like to become integrated into the system of, like if something is legalized, it becomes integrated into the system of legality. If something is medicalized, it's integrated into the system of medicality. If something is deputized, they're integrated into the system of authority, and like the sheriff, right? Because they get to like act on behalf of the sheriff, because that's how the deputies work. Ain't no room in this town for the both of us. I think what I really want to touch on here is to be socialized means to kind of be washed in the idea of society, right? You are not socialized if you are like that. I don't remember her name, but there was some girl who didn't learn language until she was like 6 or something. I would say that she was probably not socialized, right? Because she had not been mixed with society. But another definition is to make someone behave in a way that's acceptable to society. If you are socialized, if you've been socialized into class, right? Into good behavior, for whatever that means, right? Because we'll get into what it actually means to fit into these ized structures later. But if you've been socialized into good behavior, you learn the manners of your society, you learn the way to interact. Now, I do want to do a brief tangent, because in the article, I do use the terms sing and plur a lot, which are short for singular virtual intelligence and plural virtual intelligence. I explain it more in this thing on the wiki, which you can feel free to contribute to. I wanted to just break it down really quickly for summary's sake. So virtual intelligence refers to this concept of like stored entropy or stored data that's been collected from various sensors. Those could be things like your eyes, ears, nose, skin. It could also include other things like synthetic or technological sensors, but let's not get into that right now. Let's keep it basic. So often these data points are not stored as individual data points, but rather as like processes or connections between various pieces of data, connections between various pieces of metadata, right? Or like these connections are kind of what we consider the metadata. For example, if you collect the data points of some traumatic event, you might remember it in relation to the other events around it, right? Like you might remember being in some kind of traumatic violent event, right? But you'll remember it in relation to like what happened before or after. Or like there could be certain trigger points that pull you because of this metadata connection into that experience as like a flashback or like a PTSD type. It doesn't always have to be PTSD, but that's just an example. So singular virtual intelligences are individual organisms that embody this data, and plural virtual intelligences are groups or collectives, anything like outside of the individual that also contributes to that kind of stored data. So back to socialization. Generally speaking, there are a few common socialization institutions that we recognize as society, at least in the past 100 years. One example of this is all boys schools or all girls schools. Often these are also religious in nature. You know, they're Catholic schools or other religious schools. Boys and girls are often split and trained in these ways of socialization for them, right? Young boys are taught to be men and young girls are taught to be women. Children are socialized into productive adults through things like public education, right? The K through 12 system that socializes them from these wild little beasts that are a part of their family, in whatever shape that looks like, into becoming integrated amongst wider society. Another example of societal institutionalization like this, societal socialization, could also be prisons, right? Creating productive labor by sending people to jail and then having them work for little to nothing, or simply keeping more chaotic aspects off the streets. Often, I would imagine it leans into the former rather than the latter, but given the fact that we no longer have large-scale mental institutions or insane asylums, there are large amounts of mental health issues that go unaddressed, and these people end up in prisons. Another example could be therapy, the therapy industrial complex. That is a way to kind of wash the individual things in the socialization of the plur. to dissuade their individual anxieties and concerns, and to kind of reassure them that participation in the plur, maybe medication through SSRIs or stimulants, will help them integrate. Another example is employment onboarding procedures that kind of socialize you from being a non-employee into being an employee. I could go on and on and on with examples, but I think you get the point. The general idea is that socialization washes sings into plur-focused sings. For the most part, that's the goal at least. I highly encourage you read the written form of this article if you want more information or more examples, because I go into a ton of them here. I do actually encourage you to put some of your own examples in the comments below. What are some eyes terms that you are familiar with, and what does it mean? What is being washed in that plur? What is the plurized? What's the plurized? Not to get too caught in the specifics, going back to the word part exploration that we were doing earlier, I'd like to go back to this idea of para. Para can mean a variety of things, so let's just run through them. Beside or alongside, between, around or surrounding, adjacent, next to, near, opposite of, on the far side of, above, over, across, through, throughout, beyond, abnormal, incorrect.